Champoeg Park is very special. It's what I consider my home state park. I only live a few miles away from Champoeg, and I come here with my family to check up on the beavers that live in the creeks around here, or to collect different traditional foods. And for many, many centuries, it was a crossroads where our ancestors left the river and moved into other environments. Our tribe has gathered here for many years for annual canoe camps, for gathering activities, and more recently through the Plants for the People project to work on restoring the prairie that's behind us. One of the greatest challenges that we face is just the sheer volume and size of the loss that's been experienced by our tribal people. And so one of the greatest ways that we can proclaim and be a part of our own persistence is to engage in those old ways of thinking and doing. But without the ability to practice our culture on the landscape, our culture isn't living, it becomes static. We imagined a project where we would identify the plants that we wanted and the different properties of those plants that were important to us. And as we planted all of these traditional food plants out in that prairie, there was an effect that was observed that's really special, and that's that the birds focus on that 2-acre section of this prairie. That shows how, as human people, we can make plans and we can interact with the landscape, and it builds abundance in both expected and unexpected ways. I'll give you an example. Camas. When you harvest camas, you take the big bulbs and you leave the little ones. And when you do that, what happens is it aerates the soil, it allows for those bulbs to get larger and spread out, and you get propagation through the spreading of bulbs as well as the seeds. And this means that a camas patch that has human interaction can actually become more abundant over time compared to a camas patch that doesn't have human interaction. A number of teachings that we have, I think, are really pertinent to traditional ecological knowledge. One is this concept of managing for abundance, and this idea that humans, maybe the greatest gift or power that we have is the ability to take actions that beneficially impact not only us, but also plant communities, animal communities around us. And so often that is a stark contrast to the way that environmental preservation has been viewed, which is an understanding that people are bad and things that people do are somehow negative to the environment. Yet all of the different teachings and things that we've seen throughout time and the relationships that our tribal people can have to plant communities show how those communities, including human beings, can be more abundant over time. And also, burning creates abundance. Fire does things in an ecosystem that can't be achieved otherwise. For up to 10 years after a plant is burned, it can produce over 3 times the amount of available browse and forage. You actually have more food in a system when you burn it in a good way. This prairie here is a place that we've started to help burn. The Grand Round tribe has an active fire crew and has the ability to write burn plans. And when we started this restoration site, when that possibility was realized, it brought a whole new dimension to this project. Restoration without fire is not restoration in the Willamette Valley. If we want these teachings, if we want these ways, we have to become experts in community creation, community support, community maintenance, and it requires adaptation. We can keep the area of this prairie pesticide and herbicide free and keeping it living and applying our tribal teachings and knowledge by having work parties. Sometimes we do earthen oven cooking and try traditional foods or other foods and gather with our community. These are all ways that we connect to Champoeg.
Here on this oak tree, there's like a really cool...
One of the things that I love about Champoeg is going for walks with my kids. And whether that's when the camas flowers are coming up in the spring, whether it's seeing the beavers on top of their lodges in the wintertime, explaining to my kids about oak trees and about the importance of acorns. This is a really beautiful place to be able to share and engage with my kids, whether we're walking through a prairie, whether we're riding our bikes to the ice cream shop. Champoeg continues to be a really important place. When I think about places like Champoeg, they're places that people think to return to as a part of reactivating the seasonal round of our ancestors, visiting these important places throughout our homelands seasonally to be in relationship with the plant and the animal communities of these spaces. And that would be a beautiful future to me.